One of the things that I've been talking about through the provinces to create a little bit of awareness what soil health is. It's not a new concept, it's a new name, but involves a little more than soil fertility and soil quality. It's just soil health. When we talk about soil health, we're talking about living things. We're talking about like a human, because we are healthy or we are unhealthy. So that's what we're going to see if we can understand what soil health is. Sorry. Okay. Okay. I like to walk around, so I'm going to be walking around a little bit. So first of all, I just want to mention some of the signs of unhealthy soil. So when we see that there is some water and wind erosion, when we see there is compaction, when we see there is a poor soil aggregation, when we see that the yield is decreasing, we see some sign that something is going on in the soil, and that is an indication that the soil is not healthy. When we also find out that there is an increase on inputs, that you need to apply a lot of fertilizers for getting the yield that you weren't having before, or when you have to apply too much herbicides or any chemicals, any input that you put extra in your field is an indication that something is going on in there, and that could be that the soil is not healthy. I'm going to show different pictures I showed here, different characteristics when you have unhealthy soil. Maybe the light doesn't help too much, but that soil is kind of hilly there. You have some of this, you've seen this before, right? A lot. So that's an indication that the soil is not healthy. And what about this one? I can put my whole hand in there, being careful not a snake is going to bite me in there, because that is so deep. That is an indication that the soil is not healthy, because there is not enough organic matter there that allow that soil to conserve enough water in order to maintain the integrity in there. Also, when you see a soil that has that characteristic, that has all edges, that is not round, that's an indication there is compaction. When it's platy soil, that's an indication that the soil doesn't have the aggregation for the plants to have good yield and production. You will find also some diseases in the plant doesn't grow well, and you find that the grassland in there is just not giving good indication. And then this is something that just happened. And this is not the Sahara Desert. I know it's even the Venezuela meadows that the tuna or the sands move from one place to another. This just happened last week here with the wind. And then here's more picture. Have you seen this? I almost cried when I was driving here, because I was in shock when I saw this. This is what happened with our soil when our soils are not healthy. Here's another picture of that. And then I had to stop on the road. I started taking pictures, and then I still was feeling in my face all of the sand coming from the wind, and the wind wasn't strong yesterday. Well, yesterday early when I come here, but it becomes worse. And I was thinking, oh my God, look what's going to happen with our soil. And that's an indication of, why the soils are not healthy. And because they asked me to talk about soil health related to, the rangeland health, I just have an example here. Let's think about that we have unstable aggregate in the soil. So when we have the aggregates of those particles of the soil that stay together, start raining. What happened? The drops impact the soil, the water, and then disperse all the particles. And then what happened next? You have a soil that's completely sealed in there. And when the soil is sealed, so the plants doesn't get enough water that they need, and then some of these plants' production decline, the plant die, and then we have some species that you don't want it in there and then come back, and then they have more power in there. And that's what we see at the top. Some plants die, the more resistant stays in there, but we don't see what happened underneath. What happened underneath is all the biological activity is declining in there. And if the biological activity declines, it's also affecting the whole process of the soil properties in there. And then what do we get? A rangeland or any kind of land that is jeopardized and doesn't have the characteristics of having a good soil health conditions in there. So in this case, you cannot see that, but you have patches of no plants in there, different species that are no good in there, compared with a grass, land that everything is uniform when you have that. So what do we want in a healthy soil? We wanted to have in a healthy soil all of those conditions that allow, more organic matter, that allow you to have more of the microbial diversity in there. And also, one of the things that is important is that the soil quickly recover when you have any adverse effect. So that's one of the things that we want in a soil that have all of those characteristics in there. So what soil health is? In order for us to define what soil health is, we need to look at all the soil processes in there. What are those soil processes? We have the chemical, we have the biological, and then we have the physical one. All of you know about the chemical one, right? You take a soil sample, you send it to the lab, and what do you get? What are you getting in there? A fertilizer and nutrient recommendation, right? Do you care about the biology in there? Nobody cares about that. Do you care about if the soil has some compaction? No. So we need to think about all of those soil processes in a way that allow us to understand why we have to put more fertilizer in there when there is a lot of fertilizer in there that probably has been, or no fertilizer, nutrients that have been tied out in the soil. So we need to think about the soil in a way that we can integrate the different processes in the soil. And there's zillions of definitions. You Google it, and you will find a lot of definitions of what soil health is. But this one here is the one that I think I like the most because it's the continued capacity of a soil to function as a living system. If the soil is alive, it has good health or has bad health. If the soil is dead, it has no biology in there, as simple as that. So I'm just gonna think, we need to think about in a way that all of this process in the soil, they are interrelated. And then in this area where everything is on balance or in equilibrium is when we can say that a soil is healthy. Simple example like this. Imagine that the soil has some compaction. How that compaction affects the physical part of that soil? Well, it doesn't allow water to infiltrate. It doesn't have enough pore space in there. And then it doesn't have enough pore space, it's affecting the biology because the microbia doesn't have the habitat or the nice house to live on, and that is why the biology is jeopardized. If the biology is jeopardized, all the materials that we put on the surface is not going to be decomposed. If that material is not decomposed, what's happening? We will not have release of those nutrients that can come from that organic material or that materials in the surface. Are you guys following me? Does that make any sense? Okay, so that is why that's important. So how do we know if all the soil processes are working properly? We just need to look at the water cycle. And I didn't took this from any book. This is just here from Alberta. And then what I wanted to show you here is, right here is soil that will allow us to see if this soil is working properly. How do we see that? Imagine precipitation, the rain, or the snow is melting. So what's the first thing that we want? The water to infiltrate. So if the water infiltrates in there, the water, depending on the aggregation that we have in the soil, the pore space in there is going to hold some water, and the other water is going to be running off, running inside the profile, going into deep water ground. So if we see that the water infiltrates, stores, and continue this white pattern in here, it's an indication that the soil is working properly. But what happens when the water starts running off? that's an indication the aggregation is no good. For that reason, there is no, the water cycle is not working in the way that it's supposed to, and then we start losing a lot of water, and then all the consequences that we have with it, which is pollutions and all of that, erosions and all of that kind of thing. I'm going to go into what are the chemical process, the biological, and the physical one to get a little more understanding what's going on. For the chemical one, I'm not going to spend too much time because that has to do with all the nutrients that we have there, but they are being affected as a biological and physical properties, how I mentioned before. I'm going to concentrate in physical process and soil function and the biological one. So we want the soil be resistant to soil compaction, that it has good till aggregation. And you're going to see that I'm going to be talking about aggregation through the rest of my talk, but it's because how important it is. And then also, we want that the soil be resistant to soil erosion, physical support the plants, and what is also important, they have a good habitat for the microbia to grow in the soil. So let's see how compaction affects the soil function. We can see that we have decline in the soil structure. That is an indication that they will change the aggregation in the soil. And for that reason, it's going to be less porous, and it's going to be less air and less water to come into there. And it's going to also affect the microbial activity in there. So we need to have good aggregation and less compaction in order to get more microbial activity. So if there is a decline in microbial activity, it's going to be less aggregation. If we have unstable aggregation, we're going to have less microbial activity. It's just like what's the first, the chicken or the egg? You know, so that's one of the things that we need to take into consideration here. It's not going to be a good root growth, and then if we don't have good root growth, the plants is not going to be exploring deeper profile for nutrients and water in there. One of the things about aggregation is, if you got a good aggregation, you're going to have well infiltration of the water. So aggregates promote infiltration. It has less water runoff, promotes porosity, and what is important is the soil life in there. Right here, you can see if you have a soil that is still, the water is going to start running off, and then it's just going to have all of these erosions in the soil, forming that crusting, and they will degrade the soil over time. One of the three most important processes of the soil biology, I'm going to mention a little bit briefly because it's important that we know that. They played a big role in residual incorporation and breakdown of the organic matter, and they also influencing the nutrient cyclings. And again, they are very important for the formation and stabilization of aggregates in the soil. So what do they do? It's just, let's go and check at the earthworms. So the earthworms do all of this. They tread, they eat, they swallow all of these materials, and whatever's come out, it starts reaching all of these nutrients for the microbia in the soil. So it's just like they help each other in there. They help to increase water holding capacity, and they also produce some channels in the soil. And then we have some area here that we have some of the worm casts, and this is one picture that shows that I took in one of my cocktail crops that I have. And then you can see, where the worm cast is produced, and then this is like helping the soil for the aggregation formation in there. Is the biological, the soil biology is also very important in the nutrient cycling. Is the case of the nitrogen, phosphorus, and every mineral in the soil in somehow is controlled for some microbia in the soil. In this case, I only put nitrogen and phosphorus because they are the most common one that you have here. For nitrogen, all of you know that when you have the legume, what are you getting? Everyone's sleeping now. If you put legumes in your field, what are you getting? Free nitrogen. That's what you're getting. You know that, right? Am I boring you here?
I thought it was a trick question.
No, no. Well, what I said this is just one of that. And phosphorus is another one that the biology plays a big role. Canola. Canola don't like mycorrhiza, right? You know what mycorrhiza is? Okay. So if we have canola in our field, mycorrhiza is not going to help the canola to get the phosphorus they needed, right? But guess what? There is another bacteria. It's a bacteria which is a phosphorus solubilizing rhizobacteria that help probably the canola to get the phosphorus that probably is not being able to get from the mycorrhiza. You see what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say here is there is zillions of microorganisms in the soil that help the plants to get what they needed. So we just need to have the right microbia in the soil. That's what I'm trying to put it in all of this. This is just to show, how in all of these squares and rectangles and all of that, there is some kind of microbia that is playing a big role in that process for cycle of the nitrogen. Here is the mycorrhiza. It's just this one, and this is the bacteria. This is just to show some of them. So the question is, or what the statement is, what makes the continued capacity of the soil to function as a living system? Living system is biology, okay? So it's the biology that plays a big role in making the soil to be resilient. So healthy soils are the products of diversity and microbial activity. Here is a lot of the places where the biology takes place. And again, aggregation and aggregation stabilization. You're here to me probably saying that like 100 times so far, aggregation, aggregation, aggregation. You know why? Because most of the areas in the province has issue with aggregation. That's what I've been seeing out there. And then if we know about how we can correct this, we're going to have a lot of benefits into the soil health. So that's why I'm putting that in there. So I'm going to go a little bit quickly into this to see how the formation and how aggregation forms, which is very important for us to know. And so this is, when you go to college, when you go to study, you see this in the book. This is how you learn what aggregation is and all of that. And so you have all this, the particles in the soil that they start getting gluing together. They start getting kind of mucilage, and then they start just, joined together, little by little. And there are some microbia that come in because there is some food that come from decomposition of the organic matter that is there. And then when the roots come in there, the root has an exudate. That exudate is more food for more microbia in there. That microbia start acting and start, producing all of this mucil, and all of the particles start getting more together into that, and they will start forming, microaggregate together form a macroaggregate. Okay? And this is the most funny part. Not funny. The most interesting part of this is this. And this here is some plant that I pull out on one of my cocktail crops. And when I pull it out, I usually take my boots and start checking the roots to see what is left in there. And that's what was left in there. When I saw that, I said, oh, I got you say when you win the lottery? That's what I saw. I said, oh, I can't believe it. And then I started taking pictures and pictures and pictures. And then when I was looking at my picture at the end, this is what I found. Maybe you don't see that, but guess what is in here? I didn't even want to Photoshop that picture because I say I don't want to be cheating in here. I just want to leave it like that. But that picture there, did you see what it is? Exactly like in the book. So when you see something in real life after you've seen that in the book, you cannot believe that, and then you say, oh my God, this is what it is. So this is what I found there. Look at this. Here are microaggregates, and here is a hyphae. So that is exactly what was happening in that soil. A soil that before, to me, was dead. A soil that I thought there was nothing in there that was growing on, considering that was no even sign of that. But when I put this mixture of different crops in there, what was happening there was that all of these different species were exudating different kind of foods for the microbia that was there, and they start doing their job. That's what they were doing. That is what the biology do in the soil. They fix the soil, so that's why we need to put it that in there. Anyway, so this is just to show how they, explanation, how they happen, and all of that. So microaggregate, inside those microaggregates, there is highly decomposed organic matter, and more of this together is going to form that macroaggregate. We have all of these polysaccharides and all of that compound that come from the decomposition of the organic matter in there, and then made that. But this is the part that it was interesting. When I was learning about this, I have a lot of questions asking how that could happen, how a soil aggregation can get more stable in there, because what we need is that the soil aggregates being very stable in the soil so they can resist water erosion, wind erosion. They can allow the plants to infiltrate. They can allow, the better conditions for any crops to grow in there. So this is what happened. Inside those micro pores, there is microbia in there that are making that organic matter that is there more stable. And when they make more stable, guess what's happening? This is a hard question. There is going to be more carbon sequestration inside those micro aggregates. That's why we need the biology to sequester more carbon in the soil. So time, when you get old, you get stronger. So time will make those aggregates more stronger with everything that is happening in there. Another thing that is important and that has been taken into consideration is organic matter, how they play a big role. And then you can see in here, agent increases stability of microaggregate. Organic matter turnover played a big role. And before, it was believed that most of the organic matter that was in the soil came from the leaf, from the above. But new study has shown that pretty much most of the organic matter came from the roots. So the roots exudate, the microbia that is in there, all that played a big role in increasing organic matter in the soil, so that's why it's important. They say that 60 to 80% of soil organic matter come from the root compared with the biomass, above biomass. So how do we build a healthy soil? First, increasing organic matter, then we have the aggregation, and then all of these benefits that we have with having food for the microbia and a really nice house in there. If we have a cropping system, we need to diversify. That is very important. We need to have different crops in the cropping system for us to break diseases, for us to get different kind of food for the microbia, and all of that. And this is kind of a step that shows how to improve the soil health in a cropping system. And one thing that is very interesting is in the grazing system, we graze, we cut, and what happened? The roots start dying back, okay? So if we keep cutting, if we keep grazing, the root doesn't have enough time to what? To grow. If the root doesn't grow, we don't have more grass because it's weak and weak anytime. But when you have an adequate time for that system to rest, guess what's going to happen? The roots start growing, and they give more strength in the plants for the plant to keep growing. This was a study that was done in Florida, where they did grazing every 2 days, every 7 days, and every 21 days. And they find out that the longer the time that they have, waiting or resting, the root grow more, deeper. What is that good for? We know that have some exudate, that the microbia will fit in there. So if we have more microbia deep into the profile growing next to the root, what are they going to be forming? More aggregate. Remember, aggregates are very important. So I found this online, and then I love it. And then they said the root of the problem is the root of the solution. So put some roots in your field most of the year, and you will have a formation or aggregation in there. So it's the place where most of the microbia is, the rhizosphere. They have the more biological activity, and they have all of these benefits that I already mentioned before. This is one of my plants that I took from the field. And you can see all the aggregates that are forming next to the roots. You see, that is what starts making aggregates. And then I have the idea, I'm going to pull a kochia plant. So I pull a kochia plant, I said, I have to see if these things do something good for the soil. Do you think that the kochia care about the soil? You think kochia care about the microbia? You think kochia care about forming aggregates so he can live freely the rest of their life? No, they don't care. Because the conditions that are in those soils that are all unhealthy, those are healthy conditions for the soil. Does that make sense? So as simple as that. So that's why kochia doesn't care about anything in the soil, and then they're going to conquer the world if we don't start changing what we're doing anyway. So how do we build a healthy soil? We start building a healthy soil first by biological activity, and not by physical or chemical manipulation. So what the biology wants? They don't want nothing different than all of you, not me. Okay. Do you guys like a nice house with a lot of windows, with a big rooms, with a nice kitchen, and all of that? Well, microbia also wants that. If we don't get the good habitat for the microbia, it's like you living stuck in one place and you cannot move exactly like that. So if we give them the right conditions, the microclimate for them to express themselves, so we're going to get good things. So first, we need to create a habitat, a good home for them. How do we do that? We need to add some residuals at the top. We need to diversify. We need to cocktail crop. I love cocktail crop because you put like a different kind of food. It's not like you go to McDonald's all the time. You have, Italian, you have French, you have all the kind of food, put it in there when you put a cocktail in the soil. So that is what is important. And right here, you can see two things. There are things that you can see in there, like you will see aggregation, but you won't see what's really happened in there. And with that in mind, I just want to let me check time, very quickly about the soil. A little experiment that I did having cocktail mixes in there. And this is just to show. Did you see this part here where is kind of compacted and platy structures in there? This is a can follow with a cocktail crop that I put it in the field for less than 3 months, and then I found a big difference in the soil forming aggregation. How stable was that? No idea. This is the same soil, can follow. You can see all the edges compared with the same soil just next to it having more aggregation, formation and all of that. So that is what drives me in order to get all the information about that we need to change what are we doing, and we need to improve the management in order to get in formation of aggregation. Here we can see the same one. Here is the top of the one that have a cocktail mix, and you can see inside here all of these aggregates on the form compared with the one that doesn't have, that different roots growing in the soil in there. Soil aggregate formation is the first sign to a healthy soil. So that's what I mean and know about this. Okay, I just want to show another situation is this one. This is a compacted soil, and this is an aggregated soil. This is in the same plant. So what it means there that is some microbia took place in here when there is no microbia in there. And this is how that soil, where I show that, it looks like. Look at the all activity that is in there. And when I saw this in one of the fields here in Alberta, close to us right here, I couldn't believe that, because that reminded me when I was in Africa that I saw this in a cocoa plantation, the perfect environment where all the process is taking place. And there is no difference between that and the field that I saw in there. So how do we measure it? These soil indicators. With all of this that happened, motivated me to push for us to have a soil health lab. So that's what I'm going to talk about very quickly. And then what the soil health lab is, just to make us understand what is affecting the health of the soils in Alberta. We will have access to biological and physical assessment in there. What are we going to be evaluating? All of this pretty much information that we need to have a baseline to see what is the condition of our soil. I made it. So, do I have more time?
Maybe for a few questions, yeah.
No, I don't want questions. I just wanna show you guys a little demo that I have to show you why aggregate is important. And it's not up to you, it's up to everyone here if they wanna see that. If they don't wanna see the demo, I stop now and wait for questions. Do you wanna see a little demo?
Can I ask a question first, ma'am, before you go on?
No. Wait, sorry. If I'm gonna have time for doing the demo or no?
How long?
It's just 3 minutes.
Yep, do it.
Okay, what's the question?
Well, I was just going to say, because I'm a newspaper reporter, I got to run you pretty soon. I was going to ask you, you mentioned Hilda and the soil quality. There are a lot of us are thinking about Hilda right now. When you see that effect of the soil up there with the fire and the erosion, what is the chances of that coming back in a good form in the next few years, or what's the timeline?
Should I answer that? Honestly?
Please do.
It will depend what we do next. If we start doing a program there for planting, and then they also will depend on the weather conditions. If we're going to have moisture, and then we're going to have a program there that allow to start growing something with the Mother Nature give us enough moisture for that to grow, things could be changed. Things could be, start recovering into that, because that's Hilda. And then I don't know to the extent how that damage was, or this is just the surface that is, sense of soil that came from someplace else and is at the top there. But if we can start doing, a program that is going to put there some cocktail mixes in there that would allow, all whatever microbia that was left in there. I asked Andy is one of the guys that was affected by that, how deep was that? How deep was that damage that happened there? How deep did the burn went? And he said probably 2 centimeters in there. So probably is something that it needs to be measured to see, but probably we can do some things depending on Mother Nature. Another question?
I think maybe we don't have time for too many questions.
Okay, so somebody help me here to move this. Help. By the way, you want to know more about soil health? Here we have a grazing conference that is going to be in Edmonton, December 5, 7 of this year. So what I have here, can you turn off this? Okay, thank you. Is a little demo, which is, I've been copying this from people in the States because I'm a copycat. I like to copy good things so everyone can see around. And I made all of this myself, this little beautiful baskets. Spent a few hours doing that. And I've been going through the province collecting soil from everywhere to see how, good the soils are. I'm going to need 3 volunteers here because we need to do this at the same time. So I need people to help me here in order to do this. Okay, you can stand in here. And I have soil from different places. I have soil from Consort, from Hannah. I have soil from Fort Kane, Acadia Valley, and then different places that I've been in the province. So I'm going to take, let's see. I'm going to take one from Acadia Valley. And I take one from a place that I don't know what it is, just random place, walk in, and then I don't know what's going on. I'm going to give that to you so you can have that. And remember that this is a question mark place. And somebody asked me if I have a partner. And then this is funny, because I'm in love with the soil. So I have one soil that I'm in love with, and then I find a new love in another place. So we're going to test these 2 soils, okay? So this soil is from Consort. Who's my love? No, not you. But you can take my first love that is from Consort, and you can stand, how many you have? 4? Oh, I'm not going to be able to test my new love. No, never mind. It's fine. So let's test which one I give you. Acadia Valley. And you? No. Oh, my new love is here. Okay, here. You take my new love, all right, and then you move here, and you go at the end over there. Yeah, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to just put that inside of the basket at the same time when at the count of 3. You guys ready? Wait. Okay. 1, 2, 3, go. Let's see what happened. And remember each one of those soils, and then I will explain you what's going on in here. Did you like my new love or my old love? So what is happening in here is just what I've just been talking about, aggregation. When the soil has a good aggregation, they stick together. And then when the soil is compacted, they just disintegrate. Why? So, where is this from? Acadia. And this is my new love that is, I don't remember where he's from. Anyway, so, but it's up north. And this one, the question mark comes from Highway 36, this one right here. And this one is my first love here, which is from Consort. So I can tell you the management. This guy here is just a farmer that has been doing good rotation. He has been changing, he has pulses in there, he has canola, he has wheat, and then the rotation has been pretty good in that sense. Let me see how strong my love is. Strong because the particles are coming down, they are still holding together. And let's see this from Highway 36. I think this guy, no. What I notice here, that area, they do a lot of tillage, so that is causing problem. Let me see my new love. Come on, guys. Just. You see? I think I'm going to keep this guy because, anyway, so this is from Acadia Valley. Acadia Valley? Is anyone from Acadia Valley here? I'm gonna dump this guy from Acadia Valley. What do you think? No, anyway, so what happened here is very, very simple. Remember those aggregates? Remember how they stick together, the microaggregate? So when they got all in there together, the water come in, and the water rush in there, and because they are stronger, they keep holding together. But the ones that doesn't have that aggregation, doesn't have that tightness in there, it's just the water come in, make the force, and disintegrate because they are not together, they are not united, they are not glued together. So that's what happened, and that's why it's important that we have good aggregation in the soil for all the benefits that we have there. Thank you very much for your attention. Oh,